Nope, it's not working.
There it works.
1, 2.
We all ready then? Excellent. So I will call to order the meeting of the zoning boards. Let me start over. Calling to order the March 14th, 2023 meeting of the City of Kalamazoo Zoning Board of Appeals. We are a volunteer advisory board appointed by the City Commission. Would staff please conduct the roll call?
Vanden Hamburg,
Here.
Wark. Here. And Holder,
I'm here.
Harrington,
Here.
McReynolds,
Here.
Hahn.
Here.
Excellent. So for each public hearing tonight, public comments will be accepted during the times indicated on tonight's meeting agenda. Community members may call 888-382-9556 during the public comment period, where they will enter a queue and will be prompted to offer their comments in turn. Callers will be commenting live. They will not be able to leave a recorded message. This is where Pete gets to say something. Are there any announcements or changes to the original agenda, Pete?
There are no changes to the original agenda, but I do have an announcement related to 4100 Oakland Drive. I received some phone calls today and some emails, and apparently there are the company that provides the construction signage for this project, if it moves forward tonight, has already delivered the signs and placed them along Vincent Road and Angling Road, and that's caused quite a stir. So I just wanted to assure everyone that there is not a date even set for the start of the project yet. The City of Kalamazoo Public Services Department is still waiting for a traffic control plan to be submitted, so they can go over that. It's not even determined what's going to happen at the intersection of Angling Road and Oakland Drive right now. That may be one lane open during construction, just because there's so many other street closures, north-south street closures around the city at this point in time. It's not final out or causing a stir. And lastly, there will be a
Through us? Yes. All right, so moving on to approval of the minutes. Do we have any changes or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion for approval?
Approval.
And a second?
I second.
Thank you. Do we need to have any discussion on it? Anybody?
No.
Thank you. All those in favor, please in favor of approving the minutes, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying aye. Looks like we voice vote to approve. Thank you. All right, so here's the procedures for the public hearing portion. For each request, the secretary will read the application into the public record. The applicant or representative will then have 10 minutes to provide their comments. I'll say this to everybody that's in that 10-minute time frame. 10 minutes seems like a long time. Keep all of your introductions and all of that brief because it will run out fast. Following that, the public is invited to comment. At the podium, you are to sign in and clearly state your name and address and present your comments within the 3-minute time limit. Same rules apply there. 3 minutes is not a lot of time. Those in favor are going to be invited to speak first. Those opposed second. Then we will take any call-in comments. Those will be aired for the board and the audience. After that, we will close the public hearing and the board will then conduct what is called the finding of fact. This is where the board states what they feel are the facts of the request. The board must approve the finding of fact by the board. or a finding of fact. Anyway, so what that means is the first vote you hear is not on the request itself, it's on accepting the finding of fact, saying this is what we believe the facts are. Following this, the board discusses this request in order to determine a ruling. During this period, we reserve the right to ask questions of persons who have already spoken, even after the public comment portion is closed. Once all the discussion is ended, the board will move on to a roll call vote of approving or denying the applicant's request. That's the important vote to the folks here. Please be aware, a full board consists of 6 members with 4 votes required to grant a non-use variance or a use variance. Excellent. You want to read in the first application then, Remy?
Sure. An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning ordinance have been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by ZBA number 24-03-04, 700 River Street, Dr. Michelle Johnson of Playground Housing Development is requesting variances from Chapter 50 for the form-based development standard related to the yard detached lot type. A dimensional variance from Chapter 50-5.6H1D13 to authorize 2 driveways on Bridge Street where only 1 driveway is permitted. And a dimensional variance from Chapter 50 where only 1 driveway is permitted. Please note that this request will not change the zoning classification of the properties.
Thank you. Will the applicant then step up to the podium and speak on the request? Or their representative, I suppose.
Hi, I'm Mike Hoffman with Intersect Studio, the architecture design firm for the project. With me, we have Kennedy Williams and Mia Sanchez, who are with the development team. Dr. Michelle Johnson, unfortunately, had to be out of town for business, so I know she's really eager to get this variance and kind of move the next hurdle closer to realizing her vision for the project. Also with me is Tim Stewart from Hurley & Stewart, civil engineer. You'll actually hear a lot from him this evening, so I'm going to represent this project. But the issue really comes down to the structure of the property ownership. Playground, as a developer, is trying to make housing ownership accessible for people who have struggled with that in the community. And the way that this property is structured is it will be handled in a trust as a single property, and then the homes themselves will be eventually sold. So it's a little bit like a condo, but the properties are not subdivided like a condo would be. So that triggers the ordinance of having 1 driveway or curb cut kind of per street frontage per ownership of the land. So because it is a 1 entity, even though we have 10 housing units on that entity, the ordinance says only 1 driveway. So we have done our best. I think we've reduced even by 2 the number of curb cuts we had when we had preliminary site plan meeting with the city staff to really try to tighten it up and limit the number of drives. I think under the original platting, there could have been 4 separate homes on Ampersea and 4 on River, so 8 total drives, and I think we're requesting 6 total, so 1 on Hotop, 3 on Ampersea, and 2 on River there. So some of that is related to also where the housing units have been placed. The Ampersea elevation is higher. This is a floodplain property, so the river being on the west, the floodplain comes into the site. In order to build on that, we have to build up the elevation for the homes so that they are out of the floodplain, and we have to do some compensating cutting to allow the river to not change the floodplain level for that. So the elevation along Ampersea is higher. It's also further away from the river. That makes it very, like, the best place to put those homes. to meet the Eagle requirements for the floodplain development and also to create the lower area closer to the river. So those are primarily the reasons that have led to this request. We feel like they're not, they're based on the site, and how we're doing the ownership of the site and not really changing your ordinance, asking you to change your ordinance to fit that. One other aspect of it is that the site has quite a lot of environmental contamination. That contamination actually is mostly along Ampersea, where we are going to be digging that out and removing it from the site and replacing it with clean fill as we raise those that property to where the homes are. Another good reason for why we ended up with the 10 units all along the river and Ampersea corners.
Turn this on. Thank you. Pete, would staff like to make any comments related to the request?
Mr. Hoffman covered quite a bit of them, and I'll just say, just to summarize, so we have the review criteria, identifying if there are any special circumstances related to the property, and the focal point there was really the soil contamination of the 100-year floodplain, and as Mr. Hoffman pointed out, where they're putting the houses, they had to do some removal of soil and they will be doing removal of soil and adding soil to those areas. But the floodplain requirements and dealing with the contaminated soils, were the main reasons why the housing is concentrated along the north and east sides. In regards to the number of driveways allowed, so the way this section of the ordinance is written, if the property were to be subdivided, a driveway is permitted per lot. But in this case, because it's being held as one parcel with a ownership situation similar to a condominium type development, it's one drive per street frontage. So that's where we run into the difficulty. Now, what the developer has done to minimize the number of curb cuts needed is they have created shared driveways. So you have
excuse me. I'll open the public hearing and invite those to speak in favor to the podium, sign in and say their name. Offer any comments you have. I'm going to anybody wishing to speak against the request? So far, none. Are there any call-in comments?
we have no call-in comments for this particular case.
Then that should close the hearing portion. Anybody have any discussion they want to make before we move to the finding of fact? Any questions for the applicant? I mean, I'll ask a question if he wants to come back up and answer. You can step up to the podium again. So my question, and this is just I'm never, not always curious, does know what's the thinking on how to know.
To put a driveway that goes likely behind the homes
Okay.
and have a larger common drive and parking area.
Okay.
But it would eliminate a good chunk of that green space behind the homes.
So doing it this way is lesser drives, more green space area.
Yes,
I guess if
absolutely.
there's lesser drives, you have three fewer areas of just blacktop covering grass or whatever.
And it's also that the homes sit up higher because of the floodplain issue. So if we park behind, we also then have to worry about how we transverse up to get to the homes and keep that mobile for everyone.
Okay. Excellent.
You mentioned contamination on the site. How much contamination and exactly where is it?
If I remember correctly from all the environmental details, it's mostly arsenic, which occurs pretty naturally in the soils, as I understand around here. It's in the clay about 2 feet deep. We're bringing in about 2 feet of fill to cover all that, but it's been Dr. Johnson's desire really to go above and beyond what the minimum standards are for cleaning up the site and actually remove the 2 feet of soil that would have that arsenic in it and dispose of it properly off-site, and then bring in additional fill plus what we're moving in the compensating cut to handle the floodplain level and build up that soil so it's not, so even when, 20 years from now, homeowners are out, want to put a tree in and they're digging down 2 feet, that they're not getting into that soil.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for him? Anybody else? Thank you. Any other discussion? Finding of fact time. Whose turn is it? That would be Tony. Take it away.
All right. 700 River Street, the finding of facts are that we have 4 response in support of the findings of 700 River Street. We have Jonathan Price, which is, on Ray Street. Then we have Ray Wood, and we have Randall, and then we have Mrs. Wilkinson. All of them are in support of the findings of fact, along with, they talked about, Mr. Hoffa talked about a 100-year flood plan, and there's some soil contamination issues going on Amberty Street, and they talked to, Dr. Johnson talked about some removal of soil that they'll do. And then also, the layout is not ideal because they want more parking for the layout. So that's about it for the finding of facts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody got a second to that?
I second that.
Excellent. Discussion? Do you have anything to discuss?
Oh,
No?
no.
I don't need any discussion on it. I'm going to vote in favor of it because it seems like a good use. I'm sure we're all familiar to some extent with this area, and that'll be a good use of that land. And it seems like the literal enforcement of the ordinance is probably unwarranted in this instance. Otherwise, the alternative is force them to subdivide it and put in more driveways than what they're currently willing to work with. So I would just vote in favor of it.
I'll be voting in favor of it also. I like the fact that they are going to go above and beyond removing the contamination. And if we don't approve it, we're going to lose green space on the site by rerouting the drive. So I'm in favor.
I'll also be in favor of this development, and I think that they've taken very careful and intentional consideration to develop this site and to be really good neighbors and stewards of this property.
Just to,
You need to take them one at a time.
Correct. Did procedurally, for the finding of fact, did we do a voice vote on the finding of fact? Well, for the finding of fact, we have the
Second.
presenter, a second, and then we do a voice vote, and then, okay, thank you.
So can we all just vote in favor?
We're going to finding of fact.
We want to vote on the finding of fact. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That is approved then. Thank you. So we've already
Thank you.
had a discussion. We're good on that. Which means then we need to take these in turn, right? So then, so can I get a motion on approving the dimensional variance for chapter 50, et cetera, which is numbered 1 in our agenda packet? 1 sub 1 in our agenda packet. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll motion that.
I second.
All right. Do we need to do a roll call vote on this one, Pete?
Yes.
Thank you.
So this is a roll call vote for request number 1, the dimensional variance to authorize 2 driveways on Bridge Street where only 1 driveway is permitted. And we'll start with Van den Hamburg,
Yes.
Wark. Yes. Harrington,
Yes.
McReynolds,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Holer.
I'm a yes. I guess that motion passes, and that is approved. I'll just make the motion on number 2, the dimensional. I move that we approve the dimensional variance for chapter 50, et cetera, for the 3 driveways on Ampersea Street where only 1 driveway is permitted.
I second.
Thank you. Pete, you want to take the vote?
And this is regarding the 3 driveways on Ampersea Street.
Yes.
And again, we'll start with Van den Hamburg,
Yes.
Wark. Yes. Harrington,
Yes.
McReynolds,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Holer.
Yes. Thank you. That also passes. Congratulations. You're welcome. All right. Moving on to number 2. Secretary, want to read that one?
Sure. Okay. An application for a variance for provisions of the zoning ordinance have been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by CBA number 24-03-05, 4100 Oakland Drive. Oakland Financial Company LLC is requesting a variance from the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, Chapter 50, Section 50-6.2H to follow the realignment of Angling Road with Oakland Drive, which will encroach into a protected slope with a grade greater than 20% and protected slope setback. This will impact approximately 1,350 square feet, 0.031 acres of protected slope, and 1,500 square feet, 0.034 acres of protected setback area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like Pete's setting up the computer, so I'll ask if the applicant or representative wants to step up. But I think Pete's going to get that up and running before you get into it. Okay. This one is with that. No.
I don't know they need to sign in, because I don't know who those people were that left. Like, they need to sign in. Yeah. Yeah, well, for the,
Yes. Well, nobody's come up and spoken yet, so.
the one guy did, he presented the case.
Oh,
Mr. Hoffa. Hoffa. Mr. Hoffa.
I'm sure.
Recorder on something.
So we also want to make sure the applicant signs in, is what Shelby is telling me? Signs.
Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you for reminding us.
Yep, we have to remember to use our mics, they have to remember to sign in.
Absolutely. I guess like the other thing, what was, since the other guy knew you, what was his name?
He's from Interstate.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And Mike Hoffman and I have exchanged emails, so I can get you, I can get you information on that one.
It's a good reminder. Let me write that in my notes.
I thought he did, actually. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, he's made it to a few of your,
Like, what am I gonna say?
quite a few.
Right.
Okay, I'm ready. You ready?
Right?
Your time's going.
All right, let me get a picture up here for you. Okay, my name is Tim Stewart. I'm with Hurley and Stewart Engineers at 2800 South 11th Street here in Kalamazoo. And working with the Kalamazoo Country Club. We also have two other representatives from the project, John Fulling from the Kalamazoo Country Club and JJ Hen, who's the owner's representative from the Country Club as well. So today we want to talk to you about our request for a variance for grading some slopes on the south side of the intersection of Angling and Oakland Drive. And I've got some pictures up here that should be in your packet. Let me find the right one to start with here. Well, I'll start with how it is today. So if you've been in this area of Oakland Drive, you know that Angling Road comes in at kind of an odd angle, a kind of a sharp angle there. There is a signal, but with the development of the Country Club, the new entrance is going to come in directly across from the Angling Road intersection. And so the long-range plan is that the existing Country Club facilities that are accessed off of White's Road will be demolished. The new Country Club, the clubhouse, there's a golf performance center, a tennis building, all the main activity, and there's a short course over on this parcel just on the east side of Oakland Drive. All of that activity and traffic will come out to Oakland Drive now. And so as part of this project, we have designed all of these improvements, gained site plan approval last year even, and then as you've probably seen if you've been through there, the Country Club buildings and site work are under construction now. So as part of the next phase, this year, we want to construct the improvements of the Oakland and Angling intersection. And in order to bring this new driveway up to Oakland Drive, we're constructing a new signal. And then from a safety standpoint, what's important is to realign Angling Road so that it really curves, like you see in many intersections around our area, curves and comes in at a 90-degree angle. That's a much safer configuration from a traffic standpoint. As you can imagine, visibility as you're rounding the corners is greatly improved. So as part of that, the Country Club has negotiated with the Oakland Bible Church on the south side and purchased a small sliver of right-of-way in order to make this reconfiguration. And we have drawings that, here I'll go back here on your screen. You can see this drawing represents how Angling Road comes into Oakland Drive right now from the west. All of this red hatching represents what will be removed, and then it will be realigned like this, and there'll be a short boulevard section there. We'll have turn lanes in each direction, or people can go straight across to the Country Club. Like I said, there'll be a new traffic signal that will be constructed as well. This is a grading plan, so there is quite a bit of grade change from south to north through this intersection and also towards the west. So we'll be doing some grading, and I'm going to go back. So the purpose of our request is this first page here. So this page shows the The work that will be required, this purple hatch that you see, are the slopes that are greater than 20%. So to complete this work, there's a little bit of grading that we'll need to do along this stretch, and will impact 2 small areas that are protected by the Natural Features Protection Zoning Overlay. And those are really right at the right on the corner there, closest to Oakland Drive and just immediately south of Angling. There's a small section where you can see our blue hatch gets into this purple hatch, and then there's another little section there on the very west edge. And in total, it's like 0.05 acres of slopes that we're impacting. And then as also part of your ordinance, there's about 0.3 or 0.03 acres of slope setbacks. Now, we've taken this request to the Natural Features Protection Board already, and they approved it unanimously. We did also take this in front of the city's tree committee, because there are 8 trees within the right-of-way, and they approved those, that removal as well. And like I said, we have site plan approval from city staff. So today we just request that you approve our variance request to allow us to complete this work, and it should be moving forward later this year. Available for any questions you may have.
I have a question. Yes, because I'm responsible for doing the finding of fact, and I did not want to cut into your time. You're Mr. Tim Stewart from Hurling Stewart Engineers?
Correct.
All right, and then you had 2 people with you?
Yes.
Okay.
John Fulling.
Fulling?
Correct.
Okay.
And J.J. Henn, Henn.
Okay.
Excellent. Those are good questions. Thank you. We may have questions for you later,
Yeah.
more than just names.
Right.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Pete, staff got any comments on this request?
Sure. Staff's got a few comments to make. We do have review criteria that we utilize for these NFP variances, and as Mr. Stewart mentioned, this was before the Natural Features Protection Review Board on February 29th, and it was unanimously approved at that meeting. And again, it went to the tree committee. That was March 5th. So there's been questions asked about, is there going to be any replanting going on along the south side of Angling Road? The answer is yes. That was the reason for the meeting with the tree committee. So there will be, significant replanting going on there. And, but what I want to touch on here is, there's 2 significant things. This realignment, first of all, it was mentioned the angle at which Angling Road comes into Oakland Drive is not ideal. For an intersection, it's best if you can have a 90-degree termination or connection point of one street into another. And secondly, what we're trying not to create here is what was created years ago just south of Kilgore on Oakland Drive. South of Kilgore, north of 94, you have Greenbrier Drive, which is an entrance to a neighborhood on the east side of Oakland Drive, and you have Preserve Boulevard, which is the entrance to the subdivision built on the west side of Oakland Drive. And there's an old farmhouse, so they were unable to align the intersections and put 1 traffic signal in. So there's actually 2 traffic signals staggered by a short distance. And that is a very inefficient setup. And that's the last thing we want to create here, is to have this new driveway for the Kalamazoo Country Club that's going to have a significant amount of traffic flow, not aligned with where Angling Road comes into Oakland Drive. So, there's been comments made this is being done just for the country club. Well, this is actually going to create a better intersection. And with that intersection also comes a new crosswalk with a pedestrian signal that's going to be on the south side of the intersection. And then they're going to be rebuilding some sidewalk. So, so there are some, there are some good points that can be made for this project. Unfortunately, because of, our Kalamazoo River Valley, we are constantly dealing with slopes and, wetlands. And once again, we're, faced with, a little bit of impact into the slope and the protected slope setback. And I just wanted to touch base on that. So as far as disturbance in the slope setback, it's approximately 1,350 square feet. And then the disturbance in the slope setback itself, it's 1,500 square feet. So these are not large numbers, and that was the point that Mr. Stewart was trying to make with the graphic, that you can see where the protected slopes are, yet the area that's being impacted is quite small. So I wanted to, make that, that connection there, and the other comments, related to the intersection upgrades that, that the city is looking forward to. And then, of course, my comments earlier, in case anyone missed it, there is construction signage that has been delivered prematurely along Vincent and Angling Road, and that's unfortunately, caused a misunderstanding. The project has not been approved. It has to go through, this board tonight, and if it gets approval here, then it goes back to Public Services for them to work out the final details and get the traffic control plan from the developer. And then there'll be a press release coming forth. So more information will be coming out on this project, but just because those signs are out there, I know it's misleading, but there is not even a start date for this project yet, so.
Okay, I have some questions.
Yeah, and that's all I have for staff comments.
Okay. How are you justifying this, this idea of a better intersection or an intersection upgrade? Like, what gives you can maybe, Mr. Stewart, you can speak to that, but why are you saying that?
Say, let's move through ours in the normal order. I want you to ask that question.
Okay.
Let's,
we're not going to ask staff questions right now?
we can ask them what you want to ask them.
I just was asking Pete that.
I have some questions for Pete.
Okay.
For Pete. That
Well,
was for
I guess
Pete.
I
I mean, it's either ask them now, ask them later.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that with saying that this, that the city traffic engineer was the lead on redesigning this intersection.
The city traffic engineer
Yes.
was the lead design on.
Yeah, was the lead on putting together this redesign. So, this isn't necessarily coming from the developer that this is how the intersection needs to be. It's coming from the Public Services Department.
Okay.
And that 90-degree intersection creates much better lines of sight. To answer your question on why is this better?
Yeah, I just want to be
Yeah.
clear about it. So this project hasn't been approved, obviously, because they're before us now, right? But you guys did the study on behalf of the project, or how did they arrive at this? The city traffic engineer, how did they arrive at, understanding this to be a better an intersection upgrade? When was the traffic study conducted and why? Was it on behalf of this project?
I don't know anything about a traffic study. Maybe Mr. Stewart does. What I'm saying is that the developer, basically put together this plan and said, here's where the new driveway is going to come out
Okay.
for the Kalamazoo Country Club. And that's when the city got involved and said, if that's where it's going to come out, we need to sit down and work through this because we want one comprehensive intersection there with one traffic signal. So
That's the city traffic engineer that got involved.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, from the Public Services Department. So if you want to check with the applicant on any other details, I was not privy to any of those meetings. But like I said, that the plan was crafted, by Public Services, after the country club came forward with their overall concept for, where the new driveway was going to come out.
Pete, I have a question. Did I hear that this was approved by the NFP board?
That's correct.
Yeah. And then the property purchased by the developer is going to be turned over to the city of Kalamazoo, and then the city of Kalamazoo does the street, right? Because
Yes.
it's a small sliver.
Well, there's an easement agreement between the developer, you correct me if I'm wrong, developer, the property owner, which is the church that's located there, and the city of Kalamazoo.
Right.
So, to complete the work, and yes, at the end of the day, that additional strip of property that the developer has purchased from the church will become part of the city right-of-way.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That's you, Ed.
Yeah, I do. All right. Again, because I'm doing the finding of fact and I'm furiously taking notes. I understand that the city traffic engineer conducted a study, but did you say at the beginning that we're waiting for a study from the state?
No,
wait.
and I don't have any knowledge of any study done. I was saying that where that intersection plan that you saw tonight came from was the developer meeting with public services and public services crafting, this new intersection.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Stewart's got some additional comments to clarify.
I can add to that if you want, if you'd like.
You still had time remaining before.
A traffic study was completed on behalf of the country club to analyze the new drive connection to Oakland Drive. That was submitted to the city and reviewed by the city's traffic engineer. In that evaluation, we looked at, can Oakland Drive handle this traffic? Is it sufficient? Are there any other upgrades that are needed? If this connection is going to be made to Oakland Drive, where should it go? The existing Lakeside Drive is all the way at the very north line. We looked at, could we use the existing drive connection and not make any alterations at all? And as Pete said, there's just too much traffic. You would want to have a signal there for the activity coming in and going from the country club. So yes, that's all been done following standard appropriate engineering review and judgment and calculations and projections, and there's a lot of work that went into that. So we feel very confident that this connection at this location and the improvements that the city requested through the site plan approval process are definitely appropriate.
Okay.
I have a question. Okay. This is something that's really important to me, and I feel it's important to our constituents. I would like to have something in the minutes or something specific about, there's those 8 trees that are going to be removed, and the Natural Features Protection has approved it. The city's tree committee has approved it. And it says that, it's going to be replaced, use of wild type native plants or desired trees. And I would like to have it specifically written that they are hardwood deciduous trees. So that would be things like the maple, the crimson maple, the oak, not the sawgrass and the birch and those
Absolutely.
Chinese elm.
Can I clarify
Please
something
do.
there too?
Yes.
Because Pete mentioned that, and I think you said that the trees were going to be replaced on the south side of Angling, and that's not true. Not that,
Yeah.
no fault of your own, you weren't there.
Yep.
But there's not room with the road changing. The tree committee asked that we replace the 8 trees, 2 of which are dead, with 16 trees in a different location. And
Okay.
what we talked about is that since the property has a lot of frontage along the east side of Oakland Drive, there's many opportunities to plant these 16 trees there. In fact, as part of our previous approvals for the country club, this board approved a variance on previous natural features, and we were under the obligation to plant 4.5 acres of new trees on the short course and 2.5 acres of native grasses. And so all of those trees are off of the city's approved list, definitely hardwoods. It's actually a woodland that we're going to be creating. So there's going to be a lot more trees out there. And again, the city already approved that, and this board requested or required those as part of our previous variances.
Yes, they did. Thank you for clarifying that. And I did go back and print out those minutes and look back to see with the acreage and everything that you guys have got going.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yeah, so 16 trees is not a problem. There's going to be many trees out there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I mean, maybe it should be, during discussion, but do you want me to go now or just?
You can ask him now.
Well,
I mean, if we're not gonna, I just don't want him like jumping up and down.
Yeah.
So he's,
with all
everybody get
due,
it out of your system.
yeah, I just want to be really clear. My question, this is with all due respect. Like I said, I wasn't mad about the point. I feel like I'm not clear on the benefit for the community in its totality. And I'm not I'm a layman,
Sure.
So I need to be really clear on how this is going to be beneficial to the community in its totality. The country club is, it very much so feels like Kalamazoo A and Kalamazoo B. I don't have any touch points with the country club. Nobody told me I couldn't go there, but there's nothing specifically that benefits me from the country club whatsoever. And so what does affect me, though, is when we don't consider how development impacts climate change in some of the most vulnerable areas of our community, which does impact me. And I want to understand if we're going to be addressing the issue of natural features protection, if the country club doesn't necessarily benefit me in any kind of way, I don't want the country club to harm me. And I live in one of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in our community. And I want to understand, and I love people in some of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in our community, right? I want to understand how this is going to be beneficial for the community in its totality. Because I do drive on Oakland Drive, but I want to understand, and Angling Road, so I want to understand how this is going to benefit the community in its totality.
Sure, I'll try to answer that.
Okay.
And feel free to direct me if I'm not going down the right path. First off, this isn't about the country club, in my opinion. This is about the use of that property and access to Oakland Drive. And so there are proper ways to design access. And so that's the reason for this is to properly design this, make this a safe intersection. We've all gone through intersections where the roads don't line up square, and you have to try to crane your neck to turn around for visibility. The more you have to do that, the less safe it is. And in addition, there's some grade change from south to north through this intersection. So as you're traveling north on Oakland Drive and you're coming up to that light, there's a big dip just to the south of that. So it's great that there's a signal there already, but angling comes in at an odd angle. I wouldn't be surprised if there's already accidents occurring there.
Okay.
The country club is going to put more traffic into that intersection, paying for a new traffic signal, but they're doing it the right way with the city's endorsement of realigning the other side. So ideally for them, this is costing probably several $100,000 to do this. They're doing improvements to the city infrastructure in order to make that connection. So there's no request on the city. To me, this is a much safer situation for the public.
So ultimately, if this was a no from us, the project's moving forward with the country club. This is just a nice addition, essentially. And if we don't approve it, the work is still going to happen at the country club.
Yes, it is still
And-
going to
and it-
happen.
And ultimately, then, it will make this stretch of road more dangerous instead of safer.
Yes, because you would either have this high-traffic entrance and exit point for the country club with no traffic signal.
On like a one-lane each-way road that's already,
Because
like,
it's
it's
all-
super
Yeah.
backed up.
Yeah, so, that would, so that goes to the quality of life thing, like, what would you expect to see on Oakland Drive if this is not passed? It's definitely going to impact traffic congestion out
Because,
there.
why? Because they're going to have more traffic there now because
Yeah,
of this
yeah,
development?
just like the
Okay.
current entrance on White's Road has a significant amount of traffic depending on the time of day and the events going on.
Mm-hmm.
All that traffic is going to shift to Oakland Drive. And so it's just going to create more congestion unless there's a signalized intersection for cars to come out to.
I think the other point here too, that and you touched on, impacts of natural features and global warming today, and we're very sensitive to that. The country club actually is an excellent example of stewardship, and I mean, John could go on for hours about the work that they do for controlling fertilizer and water quality and invasive species. And I mean, it's really amazing to look at. They are an example of really good stewardship. But today we're asking for a variance for touching some slopes. It's not the trees. We're not near. We're going to be impacting wetlands or water bodies or anything like that. We've got a slope that's I'm out of time. It's over 20%, and we need permission to touch those so that we can, and in a very small area, so that we can do these improvements that we feel are beneficial to the community.
I have a question. So I know the city's paying a portion of this, right?
No.
Oh, okay. So how much is your the country club or the entity that owns it? I believe it's Matthew Marone, right? He's the sole owner and investor for Oakland Financial Company. Am I correct?
I don't know that.
You're not sure? I tried to.
I don't know that name.
You don't? Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, what I found was that the owner of the Oakland Financial Company is Matthew Moron. So I guess at this point it would be alleged. But like, how much is he paying for this?
For the real estate from the church?
Well,
Or-
just for everything to have this intersection safer.
So are you talking about the road improvements that we're making, or the country club development?
No, I'm talking about this parcel here, this 4100 Oakland Drive, all the improvements and everything that you're doing with that.
Yeah, I am.
Is there a
gonna
budget?
don't feel this is germane to the variance at hand, so
Oh,
if
okay.
if the applicant would like to answer it, they can. If they would choose not to,
Yeah.
that's understandable too.
I don't know that, so I can't answer that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No, that's all right.
Why
you.
isn't it germane?
Well, we're focusing on the natural features and the impact of this project on the natural features.
I think it's outside of our criteria
scope?
for current consideration and outside of
Okay.
the zoning, those people's department. Budgeting is somebody else's issue.
Yeah, anyways, I feel like we're putting the representative for the company in a spot. here.
spot.
That's what I don't mean,
Okay.
I don't mean to, kind of cut to the chase on that, but that's a difficult position to be in.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Eldridge.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
All right.
I have one announcement. Sir, I got some late-breaking news, actually. Our public services staff has been working behind the scenes ever since it was discovered that all those signs were delivered, all the construction signs and detour signs. And first of all, I have to backtrack. It was not the development company that informed the sign guys to drop the signs off. There was a mistake, and those signs were inadvertently delivered early by the company with no contact with the developers. And so those signs are all going to be picked up tomorrow.
Excellent.
So just so
I was
the
gonna
neighborhood knows that. So the signs are going to be removed, and then they will be brought back when the project is closer to the start date, whatever that date may be. Thank you.
Excellent. So we can move on to the public hearing portion and invite those to the podium who wish to speak in favor. If you wish to speak in favor, make sure you sign in. You'll have your 3 minutes. Anybody? I will now invite those who wish to speak against the request to do the same. You may step forward, sign in, and you'll have your 3 minutes to speak as well. And make sure you say your name out loud too, because Beth is writing this down. What's that? Oh, you're doing good.
Sorry, I have a long address. My name is Sue Schultz. I live on Oakland Ridge Drive, 2148 Oakland Ridge Drive, so it's the first street that you turn up. So I am going to say one emotional thing for me, and that is I have such peace of mind when I turn that corner. I hate to lose all those trees. However, I'm sort of getting the idea about why they want it situated over a little farther. But the problem, I thought, was on Oakland Drive. What are they going to do so they can make a left on Oakland Drive? I mean, that's going straight up. Why don't they just go straight across Anglin? They're going to have the same problem. So I guess I just don't understand. I also live in a place that they were allowed to take away part of the ridge to make our condos, and we've already had to replace the retaining wall because it just keeps pushing. I want to know how they're going to protect that wall in that church parking lot, which is up considerably higher, how much the grading is going to be, and how much chances they're going to cause damage to that. That's part of my issue anyway. And the other thing was the traffic thing. I thank you, Mr. Eldridge, for taking care of that problem, or at least talking to us about it. And I just don't understand. I just thought they could go straight across, but I don't know how they were going to work a left-hand turn lane. So I'm assuming they're doing that, and that's why the road's up a little farther. But I'd like that clarified.
Sure.
That's it. Thanks.
And I was going to ask you if you could clarify left-hand turn lane onto Oakland or off of Oakland?
Off of Oakland to get into their,
Okay.
into the country club.
ma'am.
So
But they've
after-
already ruined my trees.
Thank you. After we get through all the negative, or these comments and any from the call-ins, we can have him step back up and address that. That is a good concern, though.
Okay, thank you.
It's Sue Schultz.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? Excellent. Yes, I wrote.
Bettina Meyer, and I live at 2148 Oakland Ridge Drive. That was my sister speaking before me. I'm also on the Oakland Ridge Estates Board, and we are directly across the street from the project. We do have, the board has talked about this. I was on the board last year, and we had discussions and attended meetings where we could express our concerns, environmental concerns. How does this impact us? And is this going to cause possible more damage to the wetlands that are on our side of the road? And the other thing has to do with the design and making this a boulevard, taking away space for cars, and whether the traffic engineer considered the fact that this road is heavily walked and has bicycle traffic. We're supposed to be making roads safer for bicyclists and walkers. And it doesn't look to me like putting a boulevard section in there is going to help with walkers on that road. They're all walking up to Water Street to get their morning coffee, so you see them every day. So I do want to say one thing positive, and that's making access to the stoplight, turning on the stoplight for crossing the road. Any improvement in that would be a big help. I've nearly gotten killed trying to walk. I'm visually impaired, so having clear access would really be a help, and that would be great. But I hope that perhaps the design people will look at this again and take into consideration the walkers and the bicyclists on that road. Right now, we have about a foot for a bicyclist, and it's very dangerous for them. Coming from Oakland Drive onto Angling Road, it's ridiculous. So that's about all I have to say. The board has talked this over, expressed our concerns, and hopefully they'll be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I believe she said her name was Bettina Meyer.
Yes. Bettina Meyer.
Thank you, Ms. Meyer.
You're welcome.
Nobody else? Mr. Eldridge, any call-ins?
Checking right now. Does not appear we have any call-in comments for this case. Nope, no call-in comments tonight for this one.
Excellent, thank you. I do want to pose her 3 concerns to you if you want to step back up. I know it feels like we're turning you into a yo-yo.
I was going to ask him to come back up.
So
yes.
I will address what I heard as their 3 questions ultimately. First is like the left-hand signals or left-hand lanes. Now, when I look at the site plan, I see left turn lanes in here. Is the road getting widened to accommodate those? Are they already there?
They are already there.
Okay.
Yes, there would be left turn lanes in all 4 directions.
Okay. And then there would still be straight pass-through lanes as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
The other issues she brought up, and they may be sort of tied in together. One was about bicycle and walking traffic. I wasn't sure if it was along Angling so much, but definitely I think along Oakland, but maybe you can speak to both of those. What's going to be impacted here for those on this area?
Yeah, so we have added sidewalk for a portion of this new alignment on the south side of Angling. There are no bike lanes, and we have sidewalk and a new pedestrian crossing there at the south side of this if you think of it as a 4 direction intersection. And so we have sidewalk that comes down, I don't know, it's probably 75 feet or something like that. You can see it on our drawing C 2.01 that was part of the submittal. So we are picking up, we do appreciate that there's pedestrian activity and bicyclists out there. And so we are picking up as much of that as we can along the south side. This alignment and the lane configuration was not our design. It was requested by the city public services. So all of those improvements, including the new pedestrian crossing, all came from the city. Although I do want to point out that we'll have new pedestrian signals. So I think that would really help. And those are both visual and audio. That will help crossings there a ton.
Thank you. I think that addressed both of the other concern, or the other concern I heard about the signals. You had other questions?
Yes. With regard to the turning left onto Oakland, and I get that, is there going to be a green arrow?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to look at, we have a new signal design and the phasing of that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that tonight.
All right.
Do you even control the signal design?
Pardon me?
The city.
Is it like, do you control it, or is it the city that deals with the signal design?
Well, we design it in accordance with city standards, and they review it, and then they tell us how they want to operate it. So
if you don't have any left or right hand green arrows in there, and they think you should have some, you'll put them in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Boulevards are beautiful. Would it be possible to make them a little bit smaller so we could put bike lanes in? I mean, that's
possible, yes. I don't know that it would be preferable. The reason the boulevard is there is to line up the lanes across the intersection in order to shrink. I mean, so you really, ideally you want a car to be able to go as straight as possible across the intersection to find their lane on the other side. And so there is a boulevard on the country club side, so there needs to be either a boulevard or a hatched off paved area, which isn't as nice to look at. So an option, we could eliminate some of the boulevard, but then you just have a big paved area with hatching in it, striping that no one could use, because you wouldn't want bikers or anything like that to be there. You'd want the bikers to be to the outside.
okay. All right, and then who is responsible, or who's going to be managing the property on the boulevard, so the landscaping and the flowers and the mowing, or?
Sure. I don't believe that's been worked out yet. There has been talk between the developer and the city to maintain that, because they'll be maintaining the other side. There has not been a formal agreement, to my knowledge, yet, but it is a valid concern, because right now we're planning on grass in there, and that'll have to be mowed, and obviously we want this whole intersection to look good.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for Pete. Pete, the boulevards and streets, isn't that a form of traffic calming, trying to slow everything down? Otherwise, if it's just wide open, I can see people zipping by and passing other people, and it could get kind of crazy. But I know that in the Stewart neighborhood, we're talking about traffic calming and boulevards and kind of bumping curbs out and things like that.
It is a form of traffic calming, because it defines the travel lanes. So it's not just this big swath of asphalt with lanes in each direction or a center turn lane. You have, this defined barrier on both sides of the road. So yes, it is a form of traffic calming. And I know Ms. Vanden Homburg mentioned the width of the boulevards. We really can't speak to that, because Public Services did the design work on it, why they chose the width they chose. That's I wish I had an answer to that, though.
Okay.
But yeah, it is like, Gary's question, yes, it is a form of traffic calming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Excellent. Oh, where are we on this? So we've gotten through the comments. I guess we're to the, any other discussion on the request from the board? Who's doing the finding of fact? Is that you, Beth?
That would be me.
Go for it.
All right. I move that the finding of facts for 4100 Oakland Drive, which shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated February 28th of 2024. The agenda packet staff provided for this request had 45 notices of public hearing that were sent and 0 responses that have been received. Mr. Eldridge clarified that there has been no start date for this project. The city is waiting for that to be determined, and then there will be a press release. The city understands that there's been some additional tension because people are seeing these signs and they're thinking it's starting. The signs were put up prematurely and they're going to be taken down tomorrow. Okay, Mr. Tim Stewart from Hurling Stewart Engineers presented today. In his company were Mr. John Fulling and Mr. J.J. Hahn. Mr. Stewart is working in conjunction with the Kalamazoo Country Club. They're going to have golf performance, tennis, exercise center, pools. The objective for this ordinance is to have a new signal. They're looking to realign Angling Road to have it come into Oakland Drive with a 90-degree angle that is safe. And this isn't just about serving the needs of the folks at the country club, but the community as well. They've purchased some property from the church, 2 small areas at the intersection. The city's, the Natural Features Protection Ordinance unanimously approved this petition. There are 8 trees that are going to be removed. The Natural Features Protection Ordinance Committee unanimously approved it, as well as the City Tree Committee approved it. Those 8 trees are being removed. There are going to be 16 deciduous hardwood trees along the lines of crimson maple, maple oak, that are going to replace those trees. They're not going to be in the same location because that is not feasible, but they're going to be in a different location. There was a traffic study conducted on behalf of the Kalamazoo Country Club, evaluating, can Oakland Drive handle the traffic? The city engineer came up with a study, recommended it, said Oakland Drive can handle it. There was some discussion about the natural features protection plan regarding this impacting our most vulnerable neighborhoods. That is a serious consideration here. It was clarified and stated on several different occasions and in different ways here that it does impact the whole community for the better, because this is about an intersection. This isn't about just serving the people that are coming down that boulevard and going into the country club. It's serving people in the Oakwood Drive neighborhood, everybody coming down from the DNW and the Water Street. There was some discussion, regarding making the boulevards smaller, possibly to allow for bicycle lanes, and maybe a little bit more walking sidewalks. There's a possibility, potential, it was suggested that there's a foot, that it's kind of dangerous. There's not much room for bikes. There was also some discussion about who's going to be managing the boulevard, the landscaping, the mowing. You know, we don't want to have people coming down Angling Road and have grass this high, and then you cross Oakland Drive to the country club, and it's all beautiful with trees and flowers, so that is to be determined. An important consideration, there was discussion about having a green arrow, and that is significant because we need to have the people in those neighborhoods able to get out of their area and not, yeah. Okay, all right. There was no one that spoke in support, but we had 2 community members speak as opposed. We have Sue Schultz from 2148 Oakland Ridge expressed that, you know, it makes her feel bad to lose those trees. She feels safe at the intersection, as is concerns again about turning left onto Oakland Drive. How is she going to get out of her neighborhood? Also, it was shared retaining wall. There's been some issues due to the topography. You know, what is going to happen with that? Patina Meyer also spoke in opposition, and she lives at 2148 Oakland Ridge. She had some environmental concerns about the impact on the wetlands, some damage and design concerns. We talked about boulevard space and the bike lane. Okay. That concludes my finding of fact.
I'd like to approve the finding of fact with one exception. I don't believe the land sale actually took place yet, and I don't believe it will take place until this is hashed out one way or another.
I think it did.
What?
I think it didn't it take place, the land sale? Did you guys already acquire that property?
I talked to.
I can't answer that.
I spoke with Bob McCain last week from the church, and he said that it did not take place yet.
Oh.
Okay.
Want me to say that again?
Yes, please do. Sorry.
It has not been finalized yet. There's a purchase agreement in place between the church and the country club. The city commission, and this has been submitted to the city. City commission is supposed to take this up at their meeting on the 14th, 19th? Not today, it's the 14th. Next week.
So if it's not approved, everything just stays as is.
The property purchase has not been approved. The approvals that we have are for site plan. The intersection design has been approved. The property has not been finalized yet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good catch, Gary.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Since there is recommended a change to the finding of fact or a correction there, I would suggest a motion. And
Well, I think
on a second, just a voice vote to amend the finding of facts to make that correction.
Well, if
before
he
there's a vote.
seconds it with the correction, I suppose it's Beth, or do you accept the second with that correction?
Accepted.
Thank you. Then we've had, I think we can save our discussion on the finding of facts or anything else for after we take a voice vote on that. All those in favor of the findings of fact with the addition, please signify by saying aye, or do we need a voice vote? No, we can voice vote it.
Aye.
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 I'm an aye. Any opposed? Excellent. All right, so then we need a motion on whether to, on approving the variance, yes? And then we can discuss.
Did we want to discuss first?
Or do you want to
I
discuss
thought we
first?
discussed
We can
first.
discuss first.
Well, we should put the motion on the table and then do the discussion.
Okay.
That keeps us on track.
Excellent.
I move to approve the variance request 24-03-05 of 4100 Oakland Drive.
I second that.
Now we can discuss. Anybody really want to go first?
I will. I think it's much safer to do it this way. There's a lot more control. There's going to be crosswalks, which is huge. Pedestrian signals. Yeah, and it just it doesn't seem to really affect that much. 35 or 3,000 or 1,350 square feet and 1,500 square feet total. If you go out there and you're on Angling Road and you look as if you're turning south or north, you're really scooching up there to try to see what's coming around the corner. So I just think it's going to be a lot safer. And they are removing several trees. A few of them are already dead. And they're going to be planting probably 10 times those trees in that area. So
I'm going to interrupt everybody before, because I'm going to agree generally with Gary, what he was saying. So it makes sense to group us together in that way. I don't know if I would have chosen to put this entrance and exit area along Oakland Drive, given that it's skinny, but the property owner is allowed to do with it as they like. And since they want to put it there, if we do not approve this variance, we are going to wind up with probably a significantly more dangerous stretch of road than it is now. And I think with us approving it, assuming we do approve it, you're actually going to improve that whole area overall with or without the addition of the extra traffic from the country club. I also share all the concerns about the trees and the natural portions of it. I'm satisfied that the project, what was presented to us, has addressed all of those adequately. That's all I will say on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm still a little bit undecided here. I think it's a great thing for the city and for the citizenry. It's going to be much safer at that intersection. It's going to look nicer. The crosswalk and all the good things with the trees and everything you've got going there is great. I would be in support of this, provided there's that left turn lane. And I would encourage you folks to think about what it looks like when you're at the DNW. So you're coming from downtown, you're at the DNW. You turn right and you go down by where it used to be the Black Swan and it's Martel's. I think there's a boulevard, it's Greenbrier, something like that. Greenleaf, thank you, Greenleaf. Okay, and that's a beautiful area. We're really lucky to have that. However, on the left-hand side where I have family members live, that's a nice area. A lot of starter homes, a lot of smaller homes. But I can speak to the constituents there that when that came in, that light came in, they can't turn left out of that subdivision. All the people that live on Tamson and Darmo, back on the right-hand side of the street, they can't turn left. And so I can't support this without a left turn lane. And, if we're talking about all the improvements that the country club has done and all the good things they've done for our city and being good stewards, I think we need to have something about that boulevard.
Can I ask
Yes.
you, where are you I'm just confused. This is not like, where do you
Sure.
want it, lady? It's
Sure.
already there. Where
Sure.
are you talking about the left turn lane going? Are you talking here on this plan or somewhere else? Because this is what they proposed the intersection to be.
Right, and I was.
Left turn, left turn, left
Right,
turn, left
but,
turn.
right.
Are you meaning up here?
No, that was a personal example of what it's like for our constituents that live in a neighborhood that say across the street. It seems like it's an inequity. So it feels like the folks that live on Thompson and Darmo and back in there with the smaller houses with one-car garages, they can't get out of their subdivision. There's no left turn. There's no arrow. And this little 2-lane Oakland Drive, when that country club opens and it's all expanded and beautiful and they start hosting all of those golf, which is great. But I think the folks that we need to have, I can't support this without a left turn.
I agree with that, and I also think that my trepidation is about the cumulative effect of the development and how it continues to encroach upon the neighborhood. I believe that it's gorgeously and meticulously the stewardship on that property is gorgeous. It's maintained, like I said, meticulously, and we don't develop in silos. Like we're interconnected. And so the cumulative effect of this development, it might be 8 trees right now, but we're not even taking into consideration the comprehensive impact of the neighbors. And again, I just think that it continues to be a cumulative effect on our city in a way that we have not, which was what some of my concerns were the last time. Just to stay specific to this particular case, I think that I want to hear a little bit more about are you saying traffic calming or traffic calming? Calming?
Calming.
Calming.
Like calm down.
Calm down.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Traffic calming. Okay. Can we talk about that in this discussion? Like, what does that, like, how did they do that? What does that mean? And also, I don't think y'all should have a bike lane either. Like, that would just, we're perfunctorily putting these bike lanes in to say we got bike lanes, and it's a catastrophe. The line, it's already too skinny right there. I don't think that they should do a bike lane. I don't think we should do that. Like, you don't have to have a bike lane there.
Yeah, if they want to add a bike lane, the city will add a bike lane. I don't think that needs us to weigh in on it.
Necessary.
I think the point of the boulevard, aside from realignment as a calming thing, is it's cutting down on the cars that can go zipping at a weird angle through there. Like, if you come down Lover's Lane from Kilgore and you make that connection onto Portage Road right there by the vape shop or whatever it is, like, that's a good example where people will take that left so sharp they cut across the first 2 lanes that are going up Portage. But if you had like a boulevard there, or even a cone that was like affixed to the ground, you've got to slow down to go around it. And it's kind of the same thing, I guess, up by Millwood L with the person getting hit recently, where they've now put in like these cones real close to the roadway that makes you have to slow down, so you go between them.
The cones that go like this?
Yes.
I mean,
they're not like, if they're affixed to the ground, so if you hit them, they're definitely going to flop back up, I imagine. But I think that's the whole point, is it puts like I don't want to be the guy I've been to Europe, but if you go to Europe, all the roads are very narrow and all of the traffic tends to go a lot slower in the cities because the roads are extremely narrow.
I have another example.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone's traveled Kalamazoo and West Main.
Yep.
Cars fly down there, and I live on Stewart, and when my kids were young, I could barely get across the road because they were driving so fast. Now, everything is going to change here soon, and there are a lot of traffic calming ways that they're going to slow the traffic down in those areas. For one, it's going to be 2-way.
Yeah.
But then they're going to narrow the lanes there's going to be parking on each side. So everything gets a little tighter. They're going to bump out curbs. You know, if we had room for a boulevard, they would probably do a boulevard like they have on Oakland Avenue there.
Well, and down West Main where, is it Douglas?
Yeah.
Switches there,
Yes.
where they've extended that curb
Right.
way down,
Yeah.
where it used to, you just go straight
Yeah,
across there.
I know.
So it, I mean, that sort of thing, I think is.
Right, yeah, so there's, and on Stewart and West Main, cars actually, you know, they're trying to pass there, and they'll actually hit the curb and go up into Maria's on, I guess it's the, would be the southeast quadrant of that T there, and I don't know how many times they've almost hit her home. And it's just because people are, you know, trying to get someplace fast and they're not slowing down. And I think the traffic calming ways, you know, the city has really looked at that. They've looked at boulevards, they looked at narrowing everything, they've looked at roundabouts. So those are all ways to slow everything down.
Okay.
I thought Maria's was gonna be a restaurant, and it was like
Well,
an actual somebody's house.
Miss-
I'm like, I don't know a Maria's business
She
over
has
there.
a
What is he
bakery.
talking about?
She has a bakery.
I'm not visualizing it.
Okay,
Thank you, Gary.
Mr. Chair,
Good.
can I just chime in for a minute? So if some very valid points are being made, Ms. Harrington mentioned the cumulative effect. Yes, this is a very large project. So not only does it impact the private property and the redevelopment that with the new country club facilities, but we have, you know, the impact of the traffic flow from this new facility on Oakland Drive that is part of the request tonight. But this is a natural features protection variance related to just the 4100 Oakland Drive property. So we're talking, you know, our scope is this property, and is this impact in this limited protected slope area and protected slope setback, is it appropriate?
So in other words, what Pete is saying, we only care about this little sliver that's on our agenda, so please stop talking about it.
Well,
everything
I'm
else.
just trying to bring the focus back. I mean, you're right. We talked a lot about, you know, because it is important, because it is a, probably the most significant point that these improvements will make this a safer intersection. So that's how we kind of got off on the, tangent, but I just want to kind of reel us back in and, you know, and focus on that, you know.
But you're
the
saying
NFP
it's going to
variance.
be a safer intersection, excuse me to interrupt you, Pete, I'm sorry, but it's a safer intersection, but they're creating increased traffic, so they should, like, mitigate that. Is that right? Like, is it safer? Is it safer without the development?
I see what you're saying, but
Yeah. Yeah.
taking this traffic off of White's Road and they're moving it to Oakland
Yes.
Drive. So I mean, it's either gonna, it's gonna come out one place or the other. And in this case, when the new facility is built and the old facility goes away, the traffic flow is gonna move to Oakland Drive. So it's, you know, the same traffic flow that
Correct.
the White's Road entrance now. Yeah.
Like, we can't stop it from happening by not approving.
Yep.
It's gonna happen.
Yep, and
It's
that-
just.
You
do
did
we-
an excellent
do
job,
we
Mr.
wanna-
Stewart.
Do we want to let the natural feature be impacted to improve the safety of the rest of it?
Correct, and we also need to not hold the developer
you are
accountable for the design. I know what you're saying about maybe they could look at this differently, but they is not the developer, it's public services, you know, that designed the intersection and told them this is what we want. So I can take your comments back to the Public Services Department, but but to not be supportive of the variance because the intersection design doesn't have a specific element, you know, I'm struggling with that. Because the focus is really the impact of this project on the, you know, the protected slope.
And maybe it actually does have an arrow there, and we just don't know about it because we don't know all the specifics.
Well, and that's a valid point. I mean, we're talking about information we
Right.
don't have.
Right.
The turn signal, and that would be part of the turn signal, is a traffic control device. So the determination of what that includes and what it should include for a safety standpoint is under the jurisdiction. That is not a zoning issue.
Okay.
So that is not in front of us. And with the turn lanes and how that's designed, going back eons to my transportation planning background, I would say there's going to be a turn signal, but that's not fact. We don't know. But again, that's not really an issue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. We haven't heard from you guys. You want to say anything? You don't have to. You can if you
No,
want.
I agree with what y'all was stating. I would have stated some of the same issues there, but yes.
I also appreciate the discussion. I don't have anything to add right now.
Thank you. Anybody else? No last words? Then it'll be last words to me. I suppose we should move on to the vote then. Good discussion, everybody. Mr. Eldridge, do you want to take the vote?
We'll start with Mr. Wark,
Yes.
Holder,
I am yes.
Harrington.
Can I,
She'll pass for now.
yeah, I'll pass. Thank you.
McReynolds,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Vanden Hamburg,
I mean, before they vote, we only need 4 to pass, right?
we have 4.
So it's going to pass. You can vote your nose if you're really struggling on it, and it will pass.
Like you said,
Or
Pete,
you can, I suppose they can abstain. I mean, we got the 4 votes.
You know, for the record, I'm going to vote no.
Yes, it did pass.
Okay,
I mean,
well, all right.
if Remy cares to abstain,
Well,
we can
I
allow
do,
it.
I do need to,
I have to vote?
you do need to vote.
Ah.
For or against or
You need to have an
abstain.
abstain, yeah. If you want to abstain, you can abstain. What you got to say? By the way, all the slander of like check marks on blacktop, you know, there's somebody out there who loves that look in the city and the streets, and you're like, let's put in boulevards instead of that. Come on. I'll make more bad jokes, Remy.
No, I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. You said you voted no?
Yeah.
So the motion, or we approve it 4-2 is the end result there. Shelby will make it sound good in the minutes, right? It's like, no. That was all of it for, no, we have one more to go. Would the secretary like to read the 3rd application into the record, please?
Yes, I would.
I suppose I should have said it passes. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank
You're good.
you. Okay, an application for a variance of, for provisions of the zoning ordinance have been filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals by ZBA number 24-03-06, 1609 Whites Road. Oakland Financial Company LLC is requesting a variance from the Natural Features Protection Ordinance, Chapter 50, Section 50-6.2H, to authorize a new pump house for the golf course sprinkling system to encroach into a protected slope and protected slope setback. Please note that this request will not change the zoning classification of the properties.
Thank you. And it looks like Pete's getting the representative set up. Oh, you have to do those too? Sorry, as a government employee, we have to do those too. Or you have like a VPN when you work from home, like you have to sign into the special VPN. And then there's like 2-factor authentication for everything now. It's getting even worse. Like now, every time you want to unlock your computer from the lock screen, you have to like get a push to your phone.
Why?
Like if you
For safety?
Yeah.
If you at work.
I work with like child support information, so there's like federal tax information that has to be protected. So literally every time you walk away from your computer,
You have to put it back
lock your
in.
computer,
Yeah.
and when you come back, you gotta enter your password and then get your push. Real
Wow.
annoying. Real annoying.
Yes. Goodness. This is stressful.
You wouldn't have those trainings and those if somebody wasn't giving that away.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you. Go take care.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is John Fulling, and I am the superintendent at Kalamazoo Country Club. Tonight, this issue, we're requesting a variance to install a new pump station for irrigation that will service eventually both sides of the property. And so it does affect a slope. It's part of the NFP, which we went to on the 29th, and they approved. But I've just got some pictures so I can really show you exactly what's going on and why we're needing to do what we need to do. Okay, so if you look at, so what we've got is our current pump. We already have a pump station, obviously, that we draw from the lake for irrigation. And that is located on the right side of the picture there. That's been there for many, many years. It's very old and would have to be replaced either way. But the new location of the pump station, based on the design of the new property and proximity to the Oakland Drive side, is far better in that area. On the left side there, I'll get a better picture here. Let me go past that and come back. Part of the reasons for putting it here is we wanted to show this because we've got golf holes, both current and future, and if looking at that picture, that area there is about the only place that we can actually put it. It would be situated in a place where the neighbors really won't be able to see it because of the elevation. It'll be built into the slope of the hill. There won't be any noise, and the water line will be underground into the lake. But from there, we're able to actually service it with the new irrigation both sides of the project in the future. Eventually, then the first pump station goes away, so we'll still only have one water draw from the lake. Already been working with the state on that as well. So when we went to the NFP, the reason for this request for variance is this area being close to the lake. There's some slope, and obviously there are trees. So we went to NFP with a few different options, and we said we can put it down closer to the water, away from the slope and away from the slope setback, or we can go into the slope, which is man-made, only affecting between 500 and 600 square feet is all this thing is. So it's a little building. And we can stay away from the trees, not remove any trees, and not touch the critical root zone of those trees. And they voted unanimously to have us not affect the trees. Go ahead and put it in the slope. We can manage that. We can manage the surroundings of the buildings, and then stay away from the critical root zone. So that's what it would look. Those are the trees. What the circles are the critical root zones. This is some of the guideline stuff that we went. So just perspective of how much we're talking about. Very small. 370,000 total square feet of slope on that side. We're potentially disturbing 1,500 square feet, but the building is really only about 500 square feet, 0.5%. Just some general 2.5% of the property, now we're talking 1609 Whites, is woodland. None of that is touched. And we have 735 total trees. Potentially disturbing 1 to 3, that was before we moved it. That was the slide from the NFP. We decided to keep it out of the critical root zone, so that will be 0 now if this is approved. And then we won't cut any trees down if it's approved here tonight to where the NFP approved it to go. Just a map of where the slope runs, and the pump station would be in that beige circular looking thing right in the middle of the red slope line. So there's no trees there. We excavated out a little bit, build the building into the slope. A lot of it would be covered, and it would house the pumps there. We also discussed the intake that has to go from the lake into the pump station, and we checked with our contractor. We are going to directional bore, a 24-inch pipe. They can do that. The reason for going that way is to not disturb any of the soil along the lakeshore. We don't want to dig, right? You never want to dig along a lake. And so they can directional bore underneath, out into the water, all the way to the pump station, which will actually keep that pipe then under the critical root zones as well. So more expensive option, but a much better option. So, and the state likes that too, right? All right, so these again, critical root zones, all right. And then just to kind of showing what we have here for trees, and you can see where the pump station is going to be. We're keeping all of those trees, and it should be about it. Cross section of how that pump station will look. What you're seeing there, the intake line, which is the long horizontal, is under the land and then into the water. And then you can see the surface, the water surface up on top. That pipe needs to be a minimum of 10 feet below the water, below the surface of the water, and it will be significantly under ground by the time it gets to the pump station, as much as maybe 18 feet. So well under the critical root zone of those trees. This is what the site looks like. You can see the trees. You can see we've got kind of some stakes outlining about. Actually, that's the original. It'll be up just a few feet from that, further away from the camera to make sure they wanted to make sure we were far enough away to be out of the critical root zone. We said no problem at all, and so we'll move that just a few more feet the other way to make sure. But that's kind of what, so you can see what I did here. So if there is a house up on top. What you're looking at, the front two stakes are like the level of the roof. So it'll be excavated out, dug into. That's as high as it's going to get. So nobody from above, no neighbors, they won't be able to see that at all. Looking at it, that important to us too. Nobody wants to see it anyway. So it'll be set back in there into the ground, mostly covered. It's not a, it's a utility building basically. Little side view. That's it. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, where am I getting to? Mr. Eldridge, any comments from staff on this request?
Just getting myself organized over here.
Well, while you're doing that, How tall, were the stakes representing, and I don't want to like get into like open it all for discussion, were the stakes, if I heard you correctly, were representing like the height of the building?
That's correct. Those were 8-foot 2x4s,
Okay.
where that was, and we were basically going down under that about 5 feet to get to where we need to have our pad.
Okay.
And so the building, about 13 feet, but yeah, so where you saw those stakes, that would have been the top.
Roughly 8 feet above is like.
Where that is, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, back to Pete.
Okay. So, again, we're back to a natural features protection variance. For this pump house, the existing pump house is much smaller and is in need of replacement, and they're going to need something larger, clearly, for this golf course expansion. This location has been worked out over many months. They had some pre-meetings. J.J. Henn came in and met with myself and Nolan Bergstrom, the community planner, who's also the liaison to the NFP board, to talk, in concept about where this pump station should go. And then we provided some initial feedback, and then they came back with a tree inventory, which confirmed that there's a bunch of oak trees, a grouping of oak trees, those might be all oaks right there, and that those are protected trees. So not only do the trees need to remain, but they also need to stay outside the critical root zone. So there was a number of things that led to, the best location being a little further west into the protected slope, away from the trees. And obviously, it's got to be in somewhat close proximity to the lake because of the pipe connection. It's got to be positioned in a manner that because it's going to be pumping water for the existing golf course to the north and then the new course to the south. So it's, this location is more central. During the NFP meeting on February 29th, one of the comments made by one of the board members there was that, they would prefer to see it actually pushed further back into the slope, which Mr. Fulling mentioned, to make sure that that it's not close on the critical root zone, that it's clearly outside the critical root zone. So the focus really seemed to be on making sure the trees were well protected, and that this impact in the slope was minimal, but was acceptable to the Natural Features Protection Board, which unanimously approved it. So that is the gist of my comments here. I'm open to any questions.
I just have a couple just to clarify. So, in what we're being asked to approve, and really in our discussion, we should not concern ourselves, to be clear, with the amount of water the building is planning to take out or any of that. It's literally just, are we going to approve it based on the slope or not?
Correct, because those other factors, like, are they, how much water are they going to draw from the lake? Is it going to damage the lake? That is all going to be handled by Eagle. They have to have a water draw permit. So all that's got to be clearly articulated. It gets reviewed at the state level, and they get their marching orders from the state and a permit.
Which means us, to be clear, us saying no is not going to stop the water draw. They will put it somewhere else where they don't, theoretically would put it somewhere else where they don't need approval, and will just take the water that they're permitted to take.
Well,
and the reason I'm asking is because we did have one person, I think, who sent in an opposition, who was concerned about the water usage for the most part, and I'm trying to address that so that I understand what our issue we're dealing with, and the water issue is somebody else's purview.
Well, and there was some comments made in the NFP meeting about water usage and efficiency and the improved technology over the sprinkling system on the golf course currently. So I don't
But ultimately, our disapproval, if we did not approve it, will not stop that end of, it'll happen one way or the other in some form. That's what it's more of a statement that you can
Yes.
either agree or disagree with.
Yeah, so when you, that's a good, yeah. So
So I don't want anybody watching who follows up with this to think we don't care. It's just outside of our pay grade, so to speak.
well, it talks about reasonable use of the parcel for which it's zoned, and recreational uses are a permitted use in these residential zone districts, and a golf course is a recreational use, and the need for irrigation is part of a golf course.
Excellent. Thank you.
I guess we're all set, John. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was just wanting to make sure we all clarified based on that. Excuse me. Thank you again, Pete. I'll now open it up to the public hearing portion and invite those who wish to speak to step up and do so. In favor, wishing to speak in favor. Anybody wanting to speak in favor? No rush to the microphone. Anybody wishing to stand up and say something against the request? Now you may do so. Nobody? Don't we all feel offended that the news took off for this request?
Yes.
This is important too.
Oh, that was the news?
Yeah. Pete, any call-in comments?
Checking right now. And the line is open. And we have no call-ins for this case.
Thank you. Any further discussion needed? Any other information needed before we move on to a finding of fact? Any more questions for the applicant, for Pete? Excellent. Gary, you want to make the finding of fact, or motion for?
Yes, sir, I will. I move that the finding of facts for 1609 Whites Road, which shall include all information included in the notice of public hearing dated February 28, 2024, and the agenda packet staff provided for this request. 117 notices of public hearing were sent out. One response was received. The response that was received was by Nina Bosner of 3614 Knox Street in opposition. Speaker for this variance was John Fuller. He's a superintendent at the Kalamazoo Country Club. We did get an approval by the NFP Review Board in regard to this variance. The pump service will service both sides of the course, and it will be hidden well. It will remove one of the existing pumps that's already up and running. It will affect approximately 500 to 600 square feet on a man-made slope. They are not removing any trees or damaging any root zones. There's going to be a direct bore to the water source, and for me that's pretty huge because they're not digging up anything. It's just, a direct bore kind of going under and pushing it through. So no one present for or against this variance, and there were no call-ins, and that is the finding of fact.
Anybody want to make a second on that?
I second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on whether we need to add anything to the finding of fact or delete something?
I thought that the presentation said that they're going to remove 1 to 3 trees. You said none.
He said that
No, they
based
cannot.
on the original idea of where the building was going to go, it might affect 1 to 3.
Okay.
But that because of the input from the NFP people, they pushed it back and is outside of that now.
And they said no.
Yes. And I think you said, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. No, I'm glad you brought it up. Well, good. Then I guess we can take a voice vote. All those in favor of of approving the findings of fact, say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Do we have a motion to approve the request?
I second that motion.
I guess I make the motion, Tony.
I make the motion.
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? You want to start, Beth, or shall I? You can. You're leaning in your microphone.
Well-
You look like you want to go, so go for it.
Thank you. I actually feel like I have quite a bit to say.
Maybe I
Because
should interrupt you. No, just kidding. Go ahead.
because we have so many new board members, there are two on the board right now that were familiar with the entity that came and asked for the first natural features on June 9th of 2022. And that was the country club. So in an effort to be transparent, my way of thinking, whether it's the country club or this Oakland Financial Company LLC, we're talking about the same property. Okay. All right. So
To clarify, there's two different properties. There's the 1609,
Right.
and then there's the 3921, which is the Oakland Drive property where all the construction's going on right now.
Right. And now we're talking about specifically 1609, which is, okay, the pump house. All right. Yeah. Okay. So June 9th of 2022, we approved a variance for the natural features protection ordinance. And it's, with all due respect, I take this very personally and very seriously. Those features, those trees, the woodlands are protected for a reason. And when you were here in June, just so you folks can get a perspective of this, any entity that owns the property can clear up to 50% of the woodlands. And they asked back in June of 2022 for a 17.5% increase, resulting in 67.5% clearing of those woodlands. Okay. At that time, the 4 swimming pools, which I did do a site visit and I did some research, were not mentioned. We've got clubhouse, golf performance center, indoor tennis facility, golf course, short course for the property. We touched on it in the earlier, but I would like it in these minutes regarding the 4.5 acres of woodlands. They did agree to plant with deciduous hardwood trees with 2 acres of the native natural grasslands, and then that would, Mr. Fulling gave an estimate that would be between 800 and 1,000 trees. So, here we are, being placed in this position again with, cutting in to this 55-acre parcel with these woodlands being removed. And so my question to the applicant is if you'd like to approach the podium. Okay. When you came to us in October, or excuse me, in June of 2022, and maybe you've had some conversation with the city about the pump house or what it is that you need, but what has changed for this parcel between the first natural features protection zoning request in 2022 and now when you were working on that short golf course?
Nothing. I will agree with everything you said. This is not the same parcel. So we were coming, that was 3921 Oakland Drive, and this is 1609 White's Road. So, but no, I would, everything you said, it still stands.
Okay.
Mr. Fulling, can you pull up the 500 to 600 square foot section that where you're going to put that pump house in, so we can see it again?
Sure.
Because it looked like it was...
I think it timed out. I'll come down and log back in.
No, it's still on. Let me, there we go. Yeah. I'll just go this way here. You want the picture of the...
I want the actual picture of...
Stop me when we get there.
Yeah. I think it was toward the end of your slide there. There.
Yep.
So that's what we're looking
There
at.
was another one after it as well, right? They just
A side view, yeah.
Yeah.
But if that was the first one was the one you wanted.
Yeah, that one there.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at. And that's approximately 500 square feet there, and it's going to go into the brim there.
Yeah, correct. So what we did, I mean, we made it 600. We did 20 by 30 just to make it a little bit bigger to see it. But yeah, so the front stakes are 8 feet, but you can see the back stakes are probably, this tall,
Right,
4 feet or so, because it's obviously has to be level going back into the hill. But yeah, that is, and so where the base of those 8-foot 2x4s are, that's roughly 5 feet above where the pad's going to be. So that building, it looks like it's only 8 feet, but it would be probably 12, 13 feet tall, but back into the hill. So
Right.
yeah, that is what we expect. And actually, it'll likely be even a little shorter than that because we are moving it back according to the, accordance with what the NFP wanted. We're actually moving it kind of back into the hill even more. So the face of that will be shorter yet.
Well, sorry, Gary, go ahead.
And are you removing trees or going into the root zones or anything like that there? Or?
No, this has nothing to do with any woodlands anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, so all the woodlands were on the other property, and that was all done, and that variance, that has nothing to do with this variance.
Okay, thank you.
So in the back then, how much above, with the new site idea, how much above the slope then would the top of the building be? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
The hill's gonna come down, like how much is it sticking up in the back then?
Right now, it's the back walls are maybe up 3 or 4 feet. If going back 4 or 5 feet, it may be a foot or two above on the very back, and 6, 7 feet maybe in the front.
And I assume, and maybe Pete can answer this, I assume part of the slope protection idea is you still want, and I know you said it was a man-made slope, not a natural feature, right?
True, but yeah.
Or not a naturally occurring slope, it's a man-made
Right.
slope. But I'm assuming that the slope protection then is to protect the slope and water running down it and stuff. So, and blocking that with a building might be a problem.
Yeah, just to clarify, so any slope that is at a grade of 20% or greater, as far as the level of steepness, is considered a protected slope if you're in the NFP overlay. And, that is because we've had, many developments where, too much slope is cut away, too many retaining walls are put in, it does result in water runoff problems. But the intent of the Natural Features Protection Ordinance is, more thoughtful development. It's not no development, it's more thoughtful and coordinated development to preserve these areas. So really what we're looking at is, I guess so your question really is, does this structure being inserted into this, this sloped area that exceeds 20%, is it going to cause any water runoff issues? I mean, it's a fairly small footprint. I think we've got, all those other pictures of the grass areas to the left and the right of it. So it's really, the water runoff is just going to sheet drain into the grass on both sides.
So, and to follow up on a point you just made about the retaining walls, is some of the slope protection then meant to prevent the slope from collapsing? Because you've removed the stuff in front of it and just put a terrible retaining wall up?
Yeah, I was using that as an example where...
I mean, that would be one thing that it's protecting against.
Yeah, in this case, they're building right into the hillside, and the foundation walls of the building are essentially, retaining the earth on those sides.
Right.
And it's a roofed structure, so.
Right. It wasn't going to necessarily affect my vote when we were, they just got to learn something.
So, Mr. Fulling, I think on the other pump station, you had trees surrounding that, no?
No.
Like
on the
shrubs?
The current?
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's because that's in actually a far more severe slope than this one will be. But we've got native grasses, tall grasses up around the slope. It's essentially going to be about the same. You'll have, like that. You'll have your tall grasses around the outside. We'll bring them around the sides of the building. We will actually tree this. We'll actually, not only will we not affect trees, we're going to be hiding it too. So we're going to be putting trees in, plants in. We'll stop all that water. And not that there's that much water, but well, whatever is there, it'll be better than actually probably what it is now.
Okay.
Frankly.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions for him, anybody? Beth? No? All right, who's already said something? Do I get to say something? I'm going to be voting in favor, but I do want to address the letter we got where it was concerned about water usage. I'm not unsympathetic to the position, but it's outside of what this board does. So I'm not basing my vote on that because it's not really up to us. But I'm voting in favor because for all the reasons in the staff report, I don't really need to belabor them.
I have a question about when we talk about how it's beyond our purview. I feel like I don't see it that way. And if I need to be corrected, if that's disordered, I'd like to be corrected. And again, my positions are not in opposition to you, or it's not that. I'm just standing on my values and my perspectives about development in our community, and that's why I took on this role on this board. Because I think that we have to be, when we are making our decisions, I feel like we have to research so that we can have the full complement of information. And so when you say that's not in our purview or that's not germane to the conversation, I would like to understand from the staff or from the city attorney, what you will have us speak to if we don't take the full complement of information into consideration when we're making our determinations about our vote.
I'm gonna not to interrupt you. I do think you're making valid points though, and I know I'm the one who's saying it's, and Pete has said it too, it's kind of outside our purview.
Yeah.
I think everybody's reasons for the way they want to vote, the things they want to talk about that will impact their vote are completely valid. You vote your own way, and if the things outside of what Pete or I or Charlie or whomever believe we're, that's beyond us, whatever, you're on the board. Make up your mind based on the information you have. But I understand where Pete's like, we're maybe ranging a little far away. Can we come back a little bit? But I explain it's beyond my purview, just to just to say why I'm voting the way I do. But I obviously, we have different views, and your vote is your vote, and I respect how you want to get to it. But Charlie, Pete, I interrupted her question that she directed at you, which is, please talk to us more about what we're doing and what we're not doing.
Well, I don't know what to really say about this request. Obviously, the last request we went.
I think it's more of a generalized, what are we doing here, what are we not doing here?
Well, I mean, you can make it specific to this particular request, it goes, I made the comment already about the cumulative effect. So this is a completely different aspect of what this development is, but I would, how can I not take into consideration even just the request that came before us just 5 minutes ago, all of that, Beth is bringing up what happened in June of 2022. I also referenced that case. This is not just one thing. I'm not talking about just what's happening at the country club. I think the country club is beautiful. I think it's great. However, we don't develop in a silo. When we take away natural features protection, however de minimis it is, we have to take into consideration that you guys might have a, beautifully curated, well-stewarded, gorgeously manicured property, but that's going to affect Edison. That's going to affect the north side, and those communities in neighborhoods are most specifically at risk for climate change. And when we're thinking about regenerative development, we have to take all of that into consideration if we're going to be good friends and neighbors. That's all I'm saying. And I think that's why when we're talking about representation on boards, it's not just to always make this thing the issue about, race or ethnicity, or it's about positioning and how you see things. And that's why that's important to bring up. And that's why my perspectives are the way that they are, because I see things based on being one of the most vulnerable populations, if not the most vulnerable population in this community. I'm a single Black mother that lives in a neighborhood that's at risk for these things. And that's why my view, and I would be remiss and I would be irresponsible to not speak from that point of view.
That's why it's terrific that everybody on this board is from a different neighborhood. That way we're getting the diversity.
I
agree with that.
I understand. You're absolutely right. And again, it goes back to the scale of a project like this. And when we talked about the Ms. Vanden Hamburg brought up the 2022 variance, and obviously that was a substantial amount of earth change going on the Oakland Drive property, and how did they compensate for that? There was that condition with the substantial amount of tree plantings and the native grasses. So so there's an offset for that. Now the 4100 Oakland Drive, that was a much smaller area of slope impacted. There is going to be some replanting. That's going to, that already's worked its way through the tree committee. And now we're talking about, so these are all elements that, yes, they're all tied to this large scale project. But that's where what I'm trying to say putting blinders on is not the right term. Okay. It's just a matter of what are we focusing on here, and what are the periphery elements related to the positioning of this pump house that we need to really take into account when we're evaluating the NFP request.
Can I ask you, you brought up I've heard the 4.5 acres of trees on this request because Beth brought it up, and it was mentioned in the previous one. Right. Who follows up on the 4.5 acres of trees to make sure they're planted? Does the tree committee follow up on that?
I'll drive back there.
What's that?
I will.
I'm just curious, because this is a thing I've thought about before, and I've asked Pete about it before, and then follow up on it. But when people come with a request and they're like, if you give us this, we will do this. We'll plant your 4.5 acres of trees. Well, who holds their feet to the fire on the 4.5 acres of trees? Or like the 16 or
Understandable.
whatever. Who does that?
That would be the planning staff. And when they've already gone through site plan review, they've provided very detailed tree inventories. So to get at,
but it's now,
how do we figure this out? Well, the tree inventory has been done, so we know what's there. And then they are going to quantify for us when they start planting, where the plantings are going, how many there are. So, just like if we get if somebody complains about, well, we think there's impact to the critical root zone on a development project, our staff is going to go out and we're going to look at that and see if there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So yes, there's an accountability side of it. It's not just, it's not just a condition on paper.
and I'm not, I know we're maybe ranging away when I ask this, but I think, and I've already said I'm going to vote yes on the pump house, but so it's been 2-ish years since the one Beth was talking about. Have those trees been started to plant? Like that's more curiosity on my side. Are those trees in the ground yet, or are they still under construction? What's going on there? I mean, you could probably speak more directly to that.
Yeah, we're still under construction. Those trees are planned for really fallish of 25. Okay. So we've already have all of those planting plans done. There's way more than what we took out going back in. There's a lot of trees going back in, and so yeah, those are planned for not only the Oakland Drive side, but we have trees that'll go on the other side. We're putting a lot of trees back in, a lot.
But, and to be clear, this request is not going to affect any of that, not affect any trees here. You're pushing it in the slope. It's avoiding all the root balls, all of that kind of stuff. This is okay.
But our plans are the second that what we're trying to do, the second that we're able to, the construction has to be done. They have to be out of there, and we have to be able to get in there, put the trees in, protect them, fence them, keep the deer and stuff away, and protect those trees. So as soon as we're able to do that, we want to start doing that. We want to start doing that because we want to start doing that. It's going to be a long, arduous job. Yeah. And so we're looking forward to getting started with it.
Chairman, if I could just comment.
Yes, go ahead.
As far as enforcement of site plan requirements or be potentially conditions imposed by this board in granting a variance, as Pete said, the planning department has people that monitor those things. They will send out notices of violations and seek to work something out. Ultimately, that can involve my office in taking legal action, judicial action to enforce those things. So there is a certain process in place there. When we're talking about the scope of what this body can and can't do, we are not suggesting that you leave your values at home. Or that you ignore your values when you come here. That's certainly part of how you make your decision process, and that is appropriate. You're making decisions in consideration of what is the letter and spirit of the ordinance, and the ordinance is intended ordinances in general enacted for health, safety, and welfare. So those are considerations. However, we do have statutes and ordinances that address the scope of what this board can consider, and that's focused specifically on the zoning ordinance. So we do get some things that are tied into development of a project involve the zoning ordinance. As far as how much water and how they can be taken out of a lake, that's under Eagle. So they've got the authority over that. They make the decisions. We do not. We can be concerned about that, but that's not within the scope of what this body can decide.
Well, fine, I'll just run for president.
I don't know if the president deals with the local zoning, though.
This president will.
Thank you, Charlie. I don't have any other discussions. Anybody else have any other discussion?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Just that, of course, I'll be voting for it, but the fact that it has a stamp of approval by the NFP Review Board and that it's being guided by Eagle, they're both above and beyond what we can do here.
Sure.
So that's why I'm
Yep.
really for it.
That's the some of you need to take it up with your legislator kind of question. I tell people that all the time when they complain about the law at work. Take it up with your legislator. Don't take it up with me. Did you have any discussion, Tony? No? Thank you.
Everything is understandable.
Excellent. Pete, time for the roll call.
All right. So just to summarize, this is the NFP variance, a vote to approve the authorization for the variances related to the pump house location. I've got Mr. McReynolds as making the motion and Mr. Work seconding the motion, and I'll proceed with the roll call vote. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
We're ready this time. Okay.
We're ready.
You make my job tough when.
I'm sorry. Gosh.
All right. Mr. Work?
Yes.
Polar?
I'm yes.
Harrington?
Yes.
McReynolds?
Yes.
Hahn?
Yes.
Vanden Hamburg?
No.
I believe that's 5-1 in favor, which means the request is approved. Thank you very much. I do not believe we have anything else on the agenda.
Nothing else from staff.
Meeting adjourned.
Get out, get a job too. Run.
I am so.
Come on.